Now in this video I'm going to be replacing these roller blinds here behind me. They're a little bit grim, they're dirty, they're not very nice, so we need to get rid of them. I'm going to replace them obviously with some new ones that I bought. Now as you can see there's three, two on the side and one at the back here. So I've got two at this size which are a lot bigger than the one that's already up on the side. However, I'm not going to cut these. There's just no point in cutting these down. It just means it's going to be overhanging this part of the wall. But actually it might look quite nice like that. Who knows? If it's a problem, I'll cut them down later. I've also got this much longer one which will need cutting down, and that's going to be for the back here. Now I've already been replacing blinds in the house, so what I've been doing is using the holes from the old brackets, adapting the new brackets so I can use those holes, because one of the things that you do find a lot if you've been keep replacing blinds, you end up with lots of holes up in the ceiling here, and particularly if it's plasterboard it can be a real problem and large chunks of plasterboard come away and what have you. So if you can, use the existing holes as much as possible. Now before we get started, it's just worth noting that the way these blinds have been put up is that these side ones, they're actually rolled over the back, whereas this one here has been rolled over the front, and that's to keep this gap here to a minimum. But also with the side blind here, it gives us minimal gap here. So with the blind actually overhanging the back, it keeps the gap quite short here. If you imagine this was coming over the front, it would leave you with quite a gap. So we need to make sure when these ones go back up, they're overhanging the other way. And I know all these blinds, they're actually set like this, so I'll show you how we actually flip that round when we get to it. Well, let's crack on with it. We'll get these off first, and they come out nice and easy. Now it is a shame that I couldn't actually use the old brackets as well. Well, I don't think I can anyway. I might have a look at that in a moment. So we'll just wind up the old blind here. I'll try not to give you any blinding jokes while I'm doing this. Yeah, we'll take that one off there as well. And finally, this back one. Why didn't I just roll it up before I took it off? There we go. Yeah, it's all a bit grim really. So the next thing I'll do is take all the brackets down. Well, that's not cool because these screws have been driven directly into the plasterboard. That's not great. Now I do think we're going to have a little bit of an issue here, because you can see where the old brackets were, it's left a bit of a rubbish hole in the plasterboard. I might be able to just put some kind of plug in there. These two here are a classic scenario of putting wall plugs in plasterboard, and here wall plugs into the plasterboard. Brilliant, gotta love that, haven't you? So what you can see here is the new bracket for the long blind at the moment, and this is the original hole from this bracket, and I've put this new hole in it so I can actually use the holes from the old bracket for this new one. And I've screwed these straight in. There weren't any wall plugs or anything in there, and these screws were quite long, so I've screwed those back in and it's actually fixed that really strong, so I'm quite happy with that fixing. Well, now I've got the brackets up, I need to measure the length of the blind and how long I'm going to cut it. So with the fixing here that actually goes into the end of the pole, what I tend to do is hold that on one side and do the same on the other, and actually measure the distance between this point here and this point here. So these basically sit inside the pole, quite far apart obviously, and that's the distance of the pole. Once they're in, that's the distance of the pole that needs to be cut. So I'm going to need a hand to measure it. It's a little bit long for my arm span. So I've measured the length of the blind that I need at 1647, and as you can see here, I've rolled out the blind on the floor, and the first thing I'm going to do is mark the pole at that 1647 measurement. So there's my 1647, and as you can see here, you do want a bit of extra pole past the fabric blind. So what we'll do is make the blind about 5mm shorter than the pole. So I can do that roughly by eye, don't really need to measure that. That's roughly 5mm, and the best thing to do here is to measure the distance from the end of the fabric to here, which is about 181. So what I'll do is mark the fabric 181 in a few locations down the blind here and run a line across it and cut it. So using a straight edge, you could just cut this with a knife, but I don't really want to cut on the carpet here. So I've got my line, I'm going to have to use some scissors. This final piece that's stuck to the pole here, you just need to cut that with a knife. And there we go. Next thing to do is roll this back up, and now we can get the pole cut. So there's our mark right there. That's where we need to cut the pole. With the pole cut to length, we just need to mark and cut this bottom rail. Okay, so we've got the pole cut to length. Do excuse the neighbour deciding to get the old hedge trimmer out and having a go at a bush. So we've cut the, this is all cut now. I've put the ends in. So I've got one end here, and obviously the pulley end, and moment of truth, let's see if it fits. There it is. So there we go. Looking good for the first one, and that's the only one I need to cut. So I'm really pleased about that. If only they could block noise out. It's great for blocking everything else out. These are blackout blinds, but you can only black it out as much as you can block out around the edge, to be honest. But it's alright, it's only in the kitchen. But it's a shame it doesn't block out the noise as much as it blocks out the light. Right, let's get cracking with the other two. Now with the big blind in place, I've put one of the new brackets in position here, and because I don't need to cut this one down, all I need to do is basically put the ends in the blind, put the new bracket on the end and mark where on here it needs to go. So I made an outline of where the bracket was, and I can just put that back into position and just mark where the holes are. Obviously I couldn't do that when the blind was in position. So there we go, got my two holes. I'm just hoping that I can screw into there. So let's give it a go, see what's up there. I'll put a really small drill bit in. Yeah, doesn't sound promising. This one here, I think must be hitting the steel or the lintel, and this end one, a little bit tricky because I have to go in at an angle, and yeah, I think that's hitting the steel as well. But I think what I should be able to do, and this is going against my beliefs, I am going to put some little wall plugs in. I know I said it's really not the way to do it, and I never put wall plugs in plasterboard, but if I make that hole tight enough and really squeeze one of those in there, it should be enough to hold it. My only concern is if I start putting large plasterboard fixings in here, it's going to start breaking out, particularly here because it's very close to the edge of the plasterboard potentially. So yeah, we'll shove a couple of these in and hope for the best. See how it goes. I mean, it has split a little bit up here, as I said, that is the edge of the plasterboard, so give it a go. Not really much you can do there other than perhaps putting a block of wood, actually fixing a block of wood perhaps with some adhesive on there or something. But I have used these small wall plugs in plasterboard before, so I think this should be alright, we'll see. Well, I'm going to use these rather small screws. I think these are like a size 4 screw, which will actually pull really nicely into those holes. That's done it really nicely actually. Got to be a little bit careful when you're using an impact driver, particularly with plasterboard and such a small screw and fixing that, you know, this has easily got the power just to spin that round and round, and that would end up completely coming away, but that has held really well. Now the thing I need to do here, like I said at the beginning of the video, is I need this blind to be actually overlapping behind the rail. So what I do need to do here is actually unravel it all. Try not to let it touch the floor. And then what we need to do is to roll it back the opposite way. This is hopefully where we can actually do it and keeping it dead square. I might just pull that out for now. It's been a little bit of a pain. There we go. That's good enough. We stick this end back in. Like so. Put the bottom rail in. Fantastic. So look at that, we've got a very small gap there, which is just what we wanted. And when this one comes down, yes, there's going to be a gap, you're not going to get away with that, but you can't actually see in, which is the main thing. Right, let's get that last one up. Okay, great stuff, job done. That wasn't too bad actually. That wasn't bad at all. I'm really happy with how it's turned out and it looks pretty nice, I think. This blind does need a little bit of time to hang to get the creases out. You can see here the ones on the side look quite nice and flat. They'll soon go, I'm not too worried about those, but yeah, fantastic. There you go, easy peasy really. We can see the sun beaming through the blinds there, so I'm going to get myself outside and get myself a piece of that, you know what I'm saying. But don't worry, I'll be going out in the back garden. Thank God, I've got a back garden. So I'm going to be staying in, keeping safe. If you like the video guys, give us a thumbs up, that'd be fantastic. Make sure you subscribe to my channel, and if you want to be notified when I release a new video, make sure you hit that bell icon. I'm done here now. I'm going to tidy up and chill out, so I'll catch you later.